Back. Making sure my audio is working once again. Ooh, actually, this needs to be renamed now. This is part 7. What to do, what to do. I guess I can just go edit it later. I don't really care about messing up with it right now. Okay, so I'm expecting that you watch 6 and 7 together because really this is still part 6, but I got interrupted because my dogs escaped and I had to go grab them. So the reference point for 6 and 7 is this agenda, and there should be a link in the description. And I was speaking to item 10, and I was saying that I don't think we'll get to this today, and that basically this is like a not really substantive thing to be doing live anyway. It's just the uploading process of your finalized manuscript, and it's a submission package because it's not just the manuscript. They will often have a PDF, and then they will require the source files, which are multiple. So I have a main tech file, and then I also have tech fragments for the figures. So like, well, this is a completely different paper, but anyway, you can see that it's importing a chart that's actually in a separate PNG file. Oh yeah, I was commenting these guys. Comment this real quick. So this is the matching effects. This is the one that I'm actually working on, and let me see if I have a figure here. I think I just have tables in this one. I don't actually have a figure. So this table is its own tech file. So when they ask me for the source, I will be submitting multiple files. There's the output PDF. There is the main tech, all of the imported text. There's the bib file, which contains my citation data. There's sometimes images and sometimes like other stuff. Sometimes they want you to upload the data set. In other cases, they're fine having an externally referenced data set. And I was saying that if it's a blinded peer review process, which is like a really high quality process, and that's great, they will often ask you to split and anonymize your manuscript. So they will want this one, which is like not anonymized, ready for publication. This isn't actually ready for publication. This is my draft that I need to revise, but by step 10, it will be ready for publication. And then they would separately want just the body. And then in a third file, so there would be the original, the body, and then a third file would be this title page without my name or any identifiable information like my email address. So those are some of the things that you would find in a submission package. And that's basically what I'll be doing in step 10 is I think it's a good practice, even if we had the time tonight. You know, in theory, I could just not sleep and be up until 6 a.m. because whatever. Even if I could do that, I just don't think it's a good idea. I think, and this is, again, a problem I have with CAR, which is that it's just a good practice to, like, get a complete draft, get a full night's sleep, and come and review it top to bottom. Give it a one last once over. So again, I've already gone through most of this agenda. I haven't actually executed these items, but I talked through the agenda. You see, step 1 is review the present agenda. So part 6, which I'm expecting that you'll watch that and then watch this because they really go together. So yeah, so we've basically reviewed the agenda. So this is basically done. So let's talk about CAR. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but basically he says that you can write a paper in a weekend. and I disagree. I think you need to gather data, which can take anywhere from a day to years. I think Carr is assuming that you already have your data ready on this particular weekend in which you're going to write the paper. So fine, but that's like a huge assumption that can take a lot of time. If you're using someone else's data and the data is, if you're using someone else's data, you still need to find it. So if I have a paper topic and my topic is like, employment outcomes in the like gasoline industry, I need to like find the data sets for the gasoline industry that exist. So like searching through existing data still takes at least like a day, if you can even find the data that you need. So you search for a day. If you can find it, great, bless up. A lot of times you won't even find it, so you'll need to go get your original data. And getting original data can take years if it is a trend analysis, which is like a really great thing to do. If you're doing a cross-sectional analysis, fine. Like my current paper is a cross-sectional analysis. But one of the first criticisms that can be made, it's actually kind of a cheap shot, is to say, hey, your result might be fine now, but it's not useful because it could literally be outdated next month. This needs to be a trend analysis. So you can pretty much make that criticism of any cross-sectional, and it's to the point that it's almost like a cheap shot, but like it's still real. So really good analyses will be over time. And so you have to collect the data over time, and you can't just like collect it on 2 different days. It has to be like statistically meaningful. So like years of data collection. Even if you're just going to run your own survey, that still like takes a day to set up and execute. And that would be cross-sectional, like a fixed point in time, not trend data. Okay, so you get the data. That's going to take you at least a day and potentially years. Okay, let's just say it takes you 1 day. There is another kind of paper which you don't even need data to do. That's like a survey paper or like a literature review. That's like a very small number of papers that can get away with stuff like that. Or like a non-empirical paper, like maybe you have like a philosophy paper. Fine. Yeah, fine. So, but I'm going to say that's not most papers. Once you have the data, you need to analyze it. And my thinking is if you don't give this at least a full day of data analysis, you're probably missing something. And here's what you don't want to do is come to the data with your conclusion in mind and just try to extract that conclusion and justify it. That's something you can do in a matter of hours. If you're like, I'm just going to check this one regression. I don't care about any other regressions. I'm going to like grab this data. I'm going to do this one regression. And if the R-square is good and the p-value is good, then I'm good. Fine. That's a really low quality way to do research though. Okay, then you draft the paper. When you're drafting the paper, it may cause you to discover new analytical concerns, cycle you back to analysis back and forth. That's common and that's actually great, but it's time consuming. I will agree with Carr that actually drafting the paper, if you already have the data, you've already done the analysis, and you already know the people that you are going to cite, and you already know the structure, like I'm going to have an intro, methodology, description of data, section, conclusion, in the like a results and then a conclusion. And results, I'm basically going to have this one table of regressions, so if that's the organization of your paper. If you already know all of these things, then actually drafting the paper as a first draft, not as a final draft, but as a first draft, I think you can do in a day. I think you can do that in a day. That's like, that's not the whole process of drafting though, right? Like that's a lot of stuff you already need to have that takes time. And when you finish that draft, it's not ready for submission to a journal. Because after you have that submission, you're going to want to get feedback, revise, target to a journal, all the other stuff that I'm doing today, the hardening process. So you get a first draft and then you need to harden it and then you can submit it. So realistically for a scholar, I want to say realistically, if you are awesome, you can write a paper in a month. Okay? That's what I think. And like I think it's pretty common for like even a professional like journal, like a professor, if they turn out 2 papers a year, like I think that's pretty good. Is 2 papers per year good for a professor? A balance? I don't know what that means. A balance would be, say, aim at least 1 paper in a respectable journal per year, and maybe a good one every 2 to 3 years. Expected to produce 2 articles per year. Yeah, and then I don't know, there's plenty of caveats, like what if you're a teaching professor? What if you're a research professor and research is all you do? Should it be more than 2? Like probably, yeah, I don't know. I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm just saying I'm actually like a PhD student, and I can say that I would pace at 2 papers a year. And I also like work full time. And I'm not saying that in a bragging way. I'm saying that because it seems slow to me compared to cars write a paper in a weekend, which I think is, so what are you going to do, 50 papers a year? I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay. So let's review the prior stream. In the prior stream, and I did this a little bit on the last stream, but basically it was up through analysis 2. And let me just commit the, oh, let me make sure this compiles really quick. Oh, because the file's open, I think. Yeah. Okay, so, and it doesn't say Journal of LaTeX templates anymore. I actually don't really want it to say preprint submitted to Elsevier either. Yeah, I think that's just built into the document class. And that's not a big deal. Part of the journal targeting, so this is just like a, once upon a time I submitted a journal article to Elsevier and I just used that same template. But if I retarget to a new journal, I'll just switch out the document class. So I don't have to actually worry too much about preprint submitted to Elsevier. I don't actually have to worry about that too much because it's just built into the template and it'll be swapped out. What the heck? Cool. So, and this is remove Journal of LaTeX template boilerplate. And I'll just remove the word boilerplate. Okay. All right, cool. So, So. I'm not really sure my chat widget even works. If y'all want to hit the chat, like, does this work? I see my chat showing up in Restream, but I don't see it showing up on my stream overlay. So I might just have chat box configured wrong. Anyway, and I'm using Streamlabs, so if y'all know what's wrong with it, let me know. Cool. So we did the review, we did against CAR, review the prior stream, right? So I went up through analysis 2. So this would be alt-ed matching analysis, analysis 2. Analysis 2, basic exploration. And I talk about what I'm doing here, first of all, in stream 5, where I really go in deep and I'm actually doing it. And then stream 6, I also give the high level, which is, this is following my horse racing, dependent variable, kitchen sink, round robin method of model identification. And there's pros and cons to that. I think it's justified in this case. and it's just my go-to approach. And basically, the last thing it does is that it identifies what's called a strong model. And the strong model, every independent variable is significant. That's what it means to be a strong model. Every independent variable is significant at an arbitrary p-value threshold. It's usually 0.5, p's 0.05, less than that. Let's just run this real quick because sign is negative and p under 0.25 seems strange to me. Here's data. So let's clear everything, and then I'll just drop the content of that file in there. I think I might have inserted managerial effects onto the strong model. So is 0.025, okay, no, I just had the wrong decimal place, 0.25. So it is strong. So it's under 0.05. 0.05, there's like a long history about why it's terrible. P-value, do I have it on my website? So here's more on p-value. P-value analysis is arbitrary. The APA, I even talked about this in a stream. You would think I would write it down so I don't forget. The APA said that the p-value had this famous thing like years ago where it's like the p-value is so outdated because it's arbitrary. There's no logic to it. So in my weak model, I do 0.5, less than that. So that statistically means it is more likely than not that some effect does exist. So that's a logical statement. It is more likely than not that some effect does exist. So in that case, it makes sense to have the variable. Even if it's weakly identified, it is probable. Yeah, I think 20. I think this is the one. Okay, great. So let me drop this in my notes for today. Notes we'll take during stream. So one is p-value is terrible. Okay. Close. I don't care about that. If you want my SSRN, it's under my About section of my website. Preparing to submit first academic paper. So this is Cabell's. So Cabell's, I think I already mentioned it in this stream. If not, I definitely mentioned it in the prior stream. Cabell's has like your chance of getting published and how long it takes them to review, and like the impact factor of the journal. Like, is it even a journal that's worth applying to? So that's a way to like derive models that you should actually submit your article to. Builds on kitchen sink. Okay. And I want to rename the second stream part 6 vids as part 7 on YouTube and Twitch. Cool. Save that. This is WordPress, by the way. I still, you know, I'm a total developer, but I still recommend WordPress because it's just so convenient. And they have a lot of best practices for free built in. Apparently my frame rates are bad. Something else I can check. Okay, so with that, so we reviewed what was done in the prior stream and what has been done since. I am going to grab a bottle of water, and we can. This will be like 60 seconds, and then we'll walk file by file. It's actually not going to take that long. There's like 5 files, and I'll just give you the synopsis of what they do. Sweet. Okay, so what has been done since the last stream? So at the end of stream 5, what has been done since last stream? Right, and that's referring to part 5, not part 6. So as we covered at the end of part 5, we did the analysis 2, and we identified the strong model. We identified it with one of the 2 dependent variables. So there's 2 dependent variables. I talk about this in prior streams, but basically I care about skill gaps, and there's 2 ways to measure skill gaps. One is with overqualification, and one is without overqualification. Overqualification is like if you go and if my grandmother applies to a job and she has 50 years of experience in real estate and she's applying for a junior role, an entry role, they say, hey, you're overqualified. And that could be a genuine thing, which is like literally, lady, go earn some more money. It could also be age discrimination in disguise. And so that when you apply to the senior role, it's like, hey, your skills are out of date because you've been doing it this old way for 50 years. So then you can like do a skill refresher with like some mid-career training or something like that. But you still might be told that you're overqualified, even if your skills are there, and it might just be age discrimination in disguise. It also might be managerial intimidation. Like the manager doesn't want to try to manage someone who is better at the job than they are. It's like kind of awkward and hard, and they might lose their job. That's another reason that you might be told you're overqualified. So and then in other cases, overqualification is great. It's like, hey, we require this level of skill, and you're actually better than that. We'd love to have you. So the willingness to hire is what we're trying to explain. That's the dependent variable on the basis of skill gaps. Skill gaps are the independent variable. So overqualification sign is ambiguous. Does it increase or reduce your willingness to hire? The answer is it depends on which skill and it depends on which employer. And even if you know that stuff, it's not a linear effect. It's a curved effect. And the marginal degree of the curve, like the rate of curving, varies. So that in my results, it's easier just to ignore overqualification effects, and you actually get a better linear model. So that's what I did and proved with analysis 3. So analysis 2, I identified weak adjusted R-square maximizing, also called medium, and then strong models with overqualification effects. And I have a variable WO, which is with overqualification. So here is with overqualification. Alternatively educated something. I forgot what the TI is. Anyway. Alternatively educated, too ideal. Too ideal. That's what it means. So what is the skill gap? It is the difference between two things creates a gap. So the skill gap for an alternatively educated person is the ideal skill level less the skill gap, or less the skill level of the alternative educated individual. You can also talk about the college graduates skill gap. They have skill gaps too. And then even actually people who are currently employed, you can be currently employed and still have a skill gap. And you difference all of these against the ideal. So this is a particular skill gap, which is the alternatively educated to the ideal with overqualification. So you can see in 3, I have an N, which just means with no overqualification. So I did the same thing as 2, but with no overqualification. And then I created a couple regression tables. So analysis 5 is the actual regression table that compares like the preferred models with and without overqualification. Basically, the preferred models are the ones that maximize the adjusted R-squared. I don't prefer the strong models. I think I talk about this elsewhere, but basically strong models, you're filtering too many variables that matter. And when you do that, your overall model power is reduced. There are cases where a strong model is still good. One case would be if you want a relatively cheap model, cheap at execution time. So strong models have fewer factors, so there's fewer things to measure. There's fewer input data. And also, if you need a really high level of confidence or coefficient value identification. So there's even like laws here in some cases that you need to basically prove that the factors and data that you're using, you need to prove that they matter to some arbitrary level, or you're bad. So I don't agree with that, but if you just care about legal compliance, like that's good, right? Like let's comply with the law. Even if the law is bad, so maybe you try and change the law, that's fine. But as a practical matter, you might want a strong model for strong factor identification. Weak, like adjusted R-score maximizing models strike a nice balance between strong factors with relatively good coefficient identification and overall model explanatory power. Balanced for, that's the balanced for complexity. So it's an adjusted R-squared. It's not the biggest R-squared, it's the adjusted R-squared. And adjusted basically penalizes you for the number of independent factors that you have. So it penalizes you for complexity. And there's a formula for it. You can Google like how to calculate adjusted R-squared. But if you optimize on that, you're getting a balance of explanatory power and simplicity. You can also just try and maximize your explanatory power, which is R-squared. But the problem is that you get into overfit there because you can always improve your R-squared by putting any input data in. I could put the the weather in, like did it rain or not? A Boolean for that. Did it rain or not? I can just make up stuff like the longitude and latitude of where people live. That actually kind of would make sense. So it seems less arbitrary. How about like the first letter of their name? There are going to be mathematical relations that can be found, but they are spurious. That is, the numbers 1 and 2, 2 to 4, 3 to 6, right? There's a mathematical pattern, and you can say, oh, it's always double. It's always double. And that's what a computer will do when you regress, when you do a regression. It's going to notice that they're moving, they're correlating, and it's going to identify a coefficient of correlation, even if we know as analysts, those have nothing to do with each other. I just dumped literally fake data. Like I didn't even measure anything. I just created a column in an Excel spreadsheet and just put in fake numbers. It will still identify some correlation. How do we fight against that? With a p-value. So p-value is going to tell you your chance of a false positive identification. That's why we like low p-values, right? So we want to be very confident that a real relation exists. So we want a low p-value. The issue is that when you maximize r squared, not adjusted r squared, just straight r squared, many of your factors have high p-values. So you get a high level of explanation at severe cost. One is cost of factor identification. Like you don't know if those factors are real. Two is the risk of overfit. Those are basically the costs that you run into. And then, I mean, the third one is that you have to have many more measurements. I guess you can put in fake data, but like no one does that. You're going to just put in fake data and make a model. You would be putting in real measurements. And so at implementation time, you would have to actually execute those measures. So maximizing pure explanatory power is not good. You can compare explanatory power of models that are identified for other reasons. And comparing the explanatory power is useful. But you don't just identify a model because it has high explanatory power. Or at least if you do, you're taking some severe risks. Okay, so the citations are malformatted. For whatever reason, you have to just like run this. Here, I'll just close this because it's going to complain that it's open when it tries to make it again. You have to like run the PDF LaTeX process like 2 or 3 times. Okay, so it worked that time. So, and I'll show you the tables. So table 2 is the table of models. So model 1 is without overqualification. Model, hold on, did I do that wrong? Model 1 is without overqualification. Model 2 is with overqualification. So it looks like with overqualification, the explanatory power is actually better. So I might need to fix that. So without, with, and then, okay, 3 is without overqualification with normalized effects. So 3 and 4. 4 is with overqualification. Still, 4 beats 3 on pure and adjusted R squared. Okay. So and then 5 is my preferred model, but I think I need to change 5 now. Because I think I derived 5 from 3. Or did I, though? I might have just remembered wrong. So let's look at 5. So here's model 5. And do the skill gaps have overqualification effects or no? With no overqualification. Hold on. With no overqualification, with no. Oh, okay, I just listed at the top, I listed them wrong. So 5 is with no, 4 is with no. With no, with no, with no, with. Okay, so my analysis is correct, but my comment is wrong. Sheesh, that scared me. Without. Okay, sorry. R5 is okay, so without, with. Okay. Models 3 and 4 have normalized effects. They are state effects, industry effects. Basically, like in 1 and 2, different state effects mattered, but some of them overlapped. So I take the ones that overlap and I use them in 3 and 4. That's normalized effects. Same with industry. If the industrial effect mattered in 1 or 2, is less important than if it mattered in 1 and 2, because if it mattered in 1 and 2, it is robust across specification. So that fights against overfit. And that's a good thing. It's like we are more confident that it matters because it mattered. We asked the question in different ways and it still mattered. So we normalize industrial effects and state effects, and there's some other effects like the size of the firm. And then we create 3 and 4 out of those. 5, basically what I did to get 5 is I looked at 3 and 4, and I said, hey, which of y'all is better? And the answer was 4. So I started with 4. And then you can see I dropped salary. I did 3 adjustments, and I think I talk about it in my paper. Model 5 is specified as Model 4 plus 2 adjustments. I think it's actually 3. Okay, so first the factor for salary is dropped. Salary factor is improved. The salary factor improved adjusted explanatory power in Model 2, but it provided no such benefit in any other model. Yeah, this is a case where that could be rephrased. Moreover, the p-value of this factor was unacceptably low in Model 4. Really, that is, I think, probably good enough, but I guess it's good to have multiple reasons. The second adjustment is to add a duration factor. Right. Okay, so those are 2 true adjustments that I made, but I think I made another adjustment after my conscientiousness analysis. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it was just 2 adjustments. Okay, how can we compare this? Through rule breakers, are we the same? So this is R4 and that's R5. Okay, so duration is added. I talk about that. Manager, industry, rule breakers. Yeah, I guess that's it. I did some more analysis and I have it here in R6, but it looks like I actually don't prefer R6. Refer to analysis 6. Okay, so we'll get into this. Yeah, actually, that's the next thing we're going to get into because it's the things that we did since last time. So basic exploration with without or with overqualification. We redid the analysis without overqualification. We created this table of multiple regressions. We selected Model 5, which we basically prefer. It's basically Model 4 with 2 adjustments. I'm going to come back in a minute and check why I didn't add a 3rd adjustment for conscientiousness. I think the answer is it's just too complicated. But we'll revisit that momentarily when we get to the analysis 6 file. The analysis 4 file is another table that I made, and this is effect groups. So here's the other table. The paper is concerned with like how much can we explain using skill gaps. So the preferred model does not make it clear. The preferred model tells you how much we can explain overall. And that R squared is like 0.388. which might be slightly overfit, but it's going to be between the adjusted and the R. So at least a third, I would say. At least a third of the willingness to hire is explained by our model. But our model doesn't just include skill gaps. It includes skill gaps and some other stuff. So then the question remains, but what about the skill gaps themselves? So that's what this other table does. And maybe I want to switch table 1 and table 2 because maybe it's confusing that I did the effect groups first. Yeah, actually, let me write that down. Okay. So what I did with this is I broke it up by the effect groups. So I think I already explained this, but like state effects is like which state are you from? There's multiple effects that are kind of embedded within states. So one is like demographic effects. 2 is cultural effects. There's like a Texan culture in the state of Texas, right? And then 3 is the actual state level policies that vary by state. So those are all grouped together. And so we don't know exactly which of those is necessarily affecting the outcome, but we know that the state itself is something about the state, some combination of those underlying factors. So state is the observable independent variable. I just ask survey respondents, like, what state are you from? That's the factor there. And my paper is not the only one to say that state effects matter. There's tons of papers that say that state effects matter in the labor market, in alternative education, in normal education for that matter. And industry effects are another example where it's a Boolean series. So here's the survey right here. And I asked them, like, what industry are you in? Agriculture, education, energy, whatever. They pick one of these. That is technically a single categorical variable, but at analysis time, it is decomposed into a Boolean series so that there's one variable that says, I'm in agriculture, yes or no. There's another variable that says, I'm in education, yes or no. It's a series of Booleans, and that is in my variables file right. Oops. Whatever. That's in my variables file right here, analysis 1 vars gen underscore is industry. So if I come over to stata, sort my variables is industry, there's like all of these. And it goes 1, 10, 11, 12 because that's the kind of sort that it does. It has all the 1s before all the 2s. It's like an alphabetic sort, not a numeric sort. But anyway, you can see that there's 12 of these. Okay, so, and that's another example of something that tons of papers talk about how, and it's like, you don't even need to be an academic to know this. We know that unemployment is different in different industries, right? Like even people who don't know squat about economics still know that. Different industries are more in demand, and they care about different skills, and then they might care about the same skills to different levels. Like there's customer service intensive industries, and then there's like industries where it's more technical and less customer service. So an example would be sales or retail, highly customer intensive, and then programming. The programmer usually is not customer facing, so more technical, less soft skill. That's just one example of many differences. So industry effects matter, and we know this. So I have state effects and industry effects, and then I compare those to skill gaps. And we see that the skill gaps matter even more. The R squared is more, and the adjusted R squared is more. And the maximum p-value, and remember a maximum p-value, like a high p-value is bad, so we want low p-value. So the maximum p-value is lower among skill gaps compared to industrial or state effects. And then there's this thing called rule breaker. So the idea is that if you do not get a college degree, there's this assumption that you're kind of a rule breaker. You're not like a traditional, you're not a normal person. You're kind of a weirdo. But the question is that bad? And the answer, so one theory, by the way, is that that's generally bad, that employers don't want weirdos. Employers want conformity. This is actually, like, conformity itself has value. That's not my theory. That's a theory that I test, though. And what I find out is, like, that's not really true. Employers, some of them want rule breakers. Some of them want rule breakers. There's an idea that, so one group of employers thinks that rule breakers are bad and they're going to cause a reputation risk, etc. Another group of employers thinks that rule breakers break rules because they're actually high performers that are held back by the rules. And then a third question that I have says that the rule breakers are gifted in the areas of, like, creativity and innovation. So that they're breaking rules because they're really thinking outside of the box and thinking of things in, like, a whole new way. And the rule doesn't really apply in that world. And like employers agree with those to varying degrees. And that is actually more important than the skill gaps, is these three questions on what does the employer think about a rule breaker. Okay. So that is going over tables 1 and 2. And now let's re-review this conscientiousness thing. So one of the things that was surprising was that conscientiousness, let's look right here, gap conscientiousness has a positive coefficient. And so let's interpret that. So what that means is, if the distance between the ideal level of conscientiousness and the perceived level of your conscientiousness is bigger, I am more likely to hire you. That on its face doesn't make sense. A small gap on conscientiousness, we want you to have a small gap because that means that how much, and conscientiousness is like the same as, like, work ethic, basically, like hardworking, attention to detail. I'll give you the wording of the actual question that I use. The level of attention to detail, work ethic, timeliness, and organization of work held by an ideal job applicant. And the usual answer was pretty high. Let's get the average for you. So it's like a 8.1. It was like ideal. And then what did they actually think about those people who are not college graduates? They're non-graduates with alternative credential. So it's, on average, it was like a 7, right? So there's an average gap close to 1. Which is really not terrible. And by the way, it's not statistically significantly different from a college graduate. So 7.11 versus 7.14, where the standard deviation is like 1.8. So college graduates have this gap too. So this isn't like a good argument that you need to go to college for conscientiousness sake. It's not the case. Who has notably higher conscientiousness? Actual people who actually are in the industry currently working. So if anything, it's like if you want to develop your work ethic, start working. That's the best way to develop your work ethic and to signal your work ethic and to prove that you have a work ethic is like get a job, get some experience. Okay. The weird thing is that we would think it's a compliment to you if they think that your work ethic is really high, and in fact, if it's close to ideal. So that would be a gap of 0. But the positive coefficient is indicating that a bigger gap is better. And so I said, no, this can't be right. So I dedicated a full file of conscientiousness analysis 6. And what I found is basically it's not a bigger gap is better. That is the result in the multiple regression, but that's not really true. So let's just look at a simple regression of the gap. The coefficient is negative. And this is a simple regression, which means one independent and one dependent variable. So the coefficient is negative, and that's what we expect, that a bigger gap is bad. So a smaller gap is better. For conscientiousness, that's what we expect. In fact, we can do a multiple regression. This is all of the Booleans plus conscientiousness, and it's still negative. But the p-value is pretty high, right? In both these cases, the p-value is pretty high. It's making me uncomfortable, man. So like I don't know, maybe that is a real problem. So then I said, hey, what about nonlinear effects? Because I went and found that other paper that's like too much conscientiousness is bad. And I was like, really? So let's actually get a curve. So we have a linear effect and a marginal effect. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. There's your data. You see that? So the linear effect is negative. The linear effect is negative. It's the collapse of the marginal effect is what is creating this higher p-value, because you're trying to force a nonlinear effect into a linear measure, so that it's not a good measurement. Basically, it's basically not a good measurement, and so you end up with weaker coefficient identification. It's hard to really know the coefficient because you're measuring it wrong. So anyway, and then I also have all these interactions. So the idea is that conscientiousness interacts with the other skills. And it's like, yeah, it does. And teamwork is a really big example. So conscientiousness is like all zeros, which means it's really, really strongly related to teamwork. And we know this, right? Like the other paper is talking about conscientiousness and teamwork. So it's a positive relation. If you're more hardworking, that's great for a team. But there is this negative marginal effect, which is the same thing the other paper says. And we identify it fairly weakly, but it's less than 0.5, which means even according to my data, it's more likely to exist than not to exist. Okay. So we basically find out what conscientiousness is doing. And basically there's a twofold explanation. One is that there is a bliss point consciousness around 8, which is like, it's not that more conscientiousness is better. It's that conscientiousness close to a particular level is better. And that's called a bliss point. So you want to get close to 8, and more than that, it starts to get bad, and less than that, it's also bad. So like just be close to 8, which is a very different result than saying a huge gap is good. It's like, it's not like the bigger the gap, the better. We're forcing that into a linear factor measure, but the relation is nonlinear. So there's a couple things you can do at this point, and I think this is why I excluded this from my preferred model, because if I'm going to give an interacted nonlinear treatment to conscientiousness, I really need to do that to every skill gap. And that is super complicated. So basically what I prefer to do, and we'll see if this comes back to me during peer review, because they could criticize me for this. I think I even anticipate it. Should have explored nonlinear factors more. Poor, unconvincing conscientiousness explanation. So I can anticipate that this is a criticism, but basically what it's saying is, what I'm going to try to do now is just stick with the linear ordinary least squares analysis, take model 5, which is a linear model. I'm going to take that as my preferred model, and then I'm just going to speak to that positive coefficient and explain why it's positive. It's not an error. Look, it's double. It's pretty significant. That's a significant factor right there. You can see the p-value. It's plus plus. Right? Do you see this? You see the two pluses? That means that the p-value is less than 0.05. So it's like significant, and it's like pretty consistently significant across the specifications. The sign is definitely significant, or definitely robust. So it's not something you can just say it's a fluke. It is a robust, consistent, significant, important result. So what you need to do is you either need to explain what's going on, or you need to change your model. And so I'm going to try just explaining what's going on. And we'll see if it flies. Okay, so now I've convinced myself that table 5, or table 2, analysis file 5 is correct. We did not include this R6. We do not store R6. We do not put it in the table because it is not actually a preferred regression. Even if it does a good job of explaining conscientiousness, and you can see that the adjusted R squared actually increases. It goes from 866 to 874. So it's actually it's technically a better model, but it's not good for communication because it just raises a ton of objections and adds a ton of complexity. Like English language, like in my paper complexity, not like technical complexity in the model. I'm not actually, from the model point of view, I'm not having to measure more factors. It's a generated factor. There is an additional factor. There are a few additional factors. There are some interaction variables and there's a marginal effect, but those are internally generated. They're computed from data we already have. It's not like I'm actually measuring new things. I don't have to ask the survey taker any new questions. I can just calculate the marginal conscientiousness from their original conscientiousness answer. Okay, cool. Whoa. So I'm pretty much confirming like my chat is not showing up, or at least it's not showing up for me. Maybe I just don't know how to use Streamlabs. Sub-skill gaps. I can be good with one sub-skill. Went to college and failed, but I knew everything they taught me. Yeah. Yeah, can anything make that whole thing bullshit? So I'm not super sure if there's a question for me to answer, but if there is, hit me with it. I'll try and pay attention to my Restream chat instead of my Streamlabs chat. Yeah. Cool. So that is that takes care of one of our steps in the agenda. So the step in the agenda is we're going to review the prior stream and what has been done since. So we did that, right? So I went through the statistical analysis file changes. There's basically two other changes. One is that actually wrote the paper, which is in this tech file. I'm going to go through that, but we're going to do that in the section by section paper walkthrough. And then other than that, related to that is that my bib file changed. So these are just my citations. So I just cited more papers. And we'll go through that again, section by section. I think I kind of mentioned one, which is the curved conscientiousness thing. All right, cool. So I think we're ready to get into the meat and potatoes, which is going section by section. And I'm going to actually do 5 and 6 together. So I'm going to get ready to do some Grammarly. Grammarly, you know, it helps you spell things right. It's like word check and grammar check, but like on steroids. And it also does a bunch of stuff with like tone. Okay, I haven't started this yet, so I need a new one. When you're writing an academic article, the normal thing to do is to use the active voice. So an example of the active versus passive is like in the active voice, data indicates X. So the data is doing something, it's active, right? That would be an active voice. A passive voice would be like, analysis of the data, like based on analysis of the data, it is clear that is a passive tone. It's not an active tone. So whenever I'm actually drafting, I'm not paying attention to that shit, right? I'm just trying to get my thoughts out on paper. And then I come back around and Grammarly is going to very quickly say, hey, these are all the places where you're using passive voice. So that's one of the reasons I use Grammarly. And then also tech files, like there's no spell check in here. So Grammarly is also my spell check and my grammar check. And then it does other cool stuff, like because I have the Programmerly. I don't think everyone needs it, but if you're really into journal writing, it's super useful. So it can also tell me if my language is too informal. And it will also notice if I'm using the same word over and over, and it will suggest synonyms. And then if I have like a run-on sentence or there's too many hard to understand complicated words in a single sentence, Grammarly will bring all of this up to your attention very quickly. So it's really like having someone else's eyes on your paper, which is really important. Because if I'm just reading my own paper over and over through my own eyes, I kind of like get oblivious and I develop certain blind spots. So this is why talking to other people is like so important. It's one of the motivations for me streaming, actually. And then also like presenting at conferences, and then asking on social media, my Facebook friends, who some of them are academics, getting their feedback. I even paid like $50. I was like, I'll give you $50 if you read my paper and give me feedback. Okay, so here's my Grammarly workflow. The first thing I do is I turn my tech file into a text file. And I actually have a utility that I built to do this. So tech should be tech to text, right? Whoa, am I tripping? Where'd it go? Tech. It's in Dino Utility is the folder name. Sheesh. Okay. All right, so I'm in Dino Utility Tech to Text. Yeah, I know why I did that, because I have to run it as a Dino, and I would forget, and I would try and run it as a node, and it would fail. So it's actually a Dino program. Text to text. So Dino. And then what is the command I run? I have in the file itself, run like this. Okay. Path to text file. So here's my text file, copy path. Okay. I might need to do that as a Linux path. Yeah. Yeah, it can't find it because it's like a Windows path. So I need to copy path Linux style. Cool. That's it. Super fast, right? Dino is wicked fast. It's actually really fun. That's more programming stuff. I'll stream programming some other time. This is more research right now. Okay, so, and then also I want to undo. I want to drop that change. On the left, this is using Git to track my changes. I already mentioned this, but all my research is on GitHub. Okay, this is an important change. This is an important change. Recompiling without the Journal of LaTeX, whatever. And then you see I got this plain text. That's what the utility does. It strips out like all of the use package, whatever, all these commands and stuff. And then also anything where I say not grammatical, comment, it'll drop that. And it does some other stuff too. It does some like white space renegotiation. So then it makes this like plain text version. And I could drop that into a Word document if I want to, even though I don't. I might want to go back and I could comment this as not grammatical, and then it wouldn't produce it into a TXT file. So all it did, you can see on my Windows Explorer, it just made a text file. See this TXT? That's all it did. And I care about this because I need it for Grammarly. So Grammarly can't roll with a PDF. You see it has overall scores 55. Yeah. So we're gonna like vastly improve. I need it at least a 90. I need 0 correctness issues. I might not do all that on air, but just to give you a feel for correctness issues. Explains to explain, so I used the wrong tense when I was writing quickly. Skill gaps explain about 10%, and interviewer perspectives on rule breakers explains, so it should be explain. That's not even like a matter of opinion, that's just incorrect. So Grammarly calls that a correctness issue. So I want the overall score to be at least a 90, but I need 0 correctness issues. If it tells me, hey, you're a bit bland, it's like to some degree, I'm like, kiss my ass, right? If it has a problem with engagement or delivery, I might not care. Clarity, I really do care. You see it's talking about passive voice. But sometimes I just disagree. I want to be clear, but sometimes I think Grammarly is making things less clear. But I still, that thing should be way over 90. Like if we disagree, we're only disagreeing like 3 or 4% of the time, not like half the time. You can see there's the 79 clarity subscore. Okay, cool. So that just gives you a feel for what Grammarly is actually improving. And I'll do some of this live so that you can see how the workflow works. But I'm not going to do all this live because it's like super boring. And you'll get the gist pretty quick. Okay, cool. So let's commit this. So this is generate txt and recompile without Journal of LaTeX stuff, and fix table do file comment. what else did I do? I did one other thing. And fix strong model p-value comment. All right, cool. So close others. So let's get into this Grammarly thing. So Control Z, Control Shift Z to redo. So I'm going to grab this, copy, go over to my text file, find. And just make the same change. And then I save that. And then I rerun the Dino. And it rebuilds the text file. Might need to, yeah. It actually didn't take that long to build the text file. It took that long for VS Code to notice. You can click this force refresh. Otherwise, I think VS Code checks your file system like once a second or once every couple seconds or something. But Dino has rebuilt the text file in like milliseconds. Okay, and so in theory, I could grab all of this and paste it all here, and it would rerun the checks. But I'm not actually going to do that because I know that I only made the one change, and it's already right there. So that's basically the workflow, and then rinse and repeat until you have all your problems solved. So I'll just dive in and do a few real quick. Rule breakers. So this is one thing. This is one thing that I'm not really sure. Like, how do you spell rule breakers? See, all these people are putting a space there. Like, I don't know. Is Grammarly correct? I see a lot of people. Let's go to Google Scholar. I see a lot of people spelling it the other way. So in Google Scholar, they got dashes galore. It's actually quite a mixture here as well. I think the answer is it could go either way. But if it could go either way, let's go with what Grammarly says. By the way, do I have my tone selected? I'm assuming that I already have my tone settings. Let me go back to my Grammarly menu. Receive skill gaps. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. I'm assuming that they're correct. All right, you see there's for passive voice. All right, let's go correctness first. Rule breakers, sure. So rule breakers, we'll do a dash. So I guess we'll replace this in every case. Place all on that. Okay. update all. Inconsistent hyphenation. I actually thought it was a difference when it's a noun versus an adjective. Okay, let's just make them consistent. Why not? Update all. Rule. Oh, it's saying you can do it either way, but be consistent. So I had said rule breaker effects, their rule breaker being an adjective is one word, versus rule breakers, which I had as two words, rule breakers. So now we just have rule breakers everywhere. I mean, I guess it's fine. So Grammarly is going to change rule breakers into rule breakers, rule breaker. All right, let's do it. Taking the plunge, rule breaker is going to become rule breaker, all one word, no dash. I don't know. I'm not a grammar dude. I really don't know. Rule breakers, rule breaker, rule, blah, 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 blah. Cool. At least it's consistent, which I can appreciate. Okay, alternatives to college signal intelligence and technical skill. So it's saying that it's not a complete sentence. Alternatives to college signal. Is that a complete sentence? I don't know, man. I think Grammarly might be wrong here, but I can still rephrase it to make Grammarly happy. Okay, the signaling model has become a standard explanation of the value of the degree. Yes. Following this model, scholars claim that the college degree signals intelligence, work ethic, and conformity. Okay. Alternatives to college okay, so let's say alternative credentials signal. Nope, still not happy. Alternative credentials scholars claim that the college degree signals intelligence, work ethic, and conformity. I think Grammarly is interpreting signal as part of the noun. Do not. Alternative credentials do not signal right, see now, okay. Alternative credentials do not signal work ethic or conformity, but they do indicate intelligence and technical skill. Alternative credentials do not signal work ethic or conformity, but they do indicate intelligence and technical skill. This paper tests the hypothesis that employers assume a deficit in the differential properties of conformity and conscientiousness, which was just a spelling mistake. Okay, cool. So let's rewrite it like this. So I have this section over here, and boop, I'm just going to grab this block and drop it I'm not going to drop it over the top because you can see when I convert it to text, it stripped the citation. So I need to, and conformity, I need to grab that citation, drop it there, and then delete the block that I replaced. Boom. Okay. Conscientiousness, I think I just misspelled this a bunch of times, and I'll just go and fix them all at once. Yeah. I guess it's because there's an S, is that right? And I'll leave out the C because that could be a capitalization thing. Cool. So that fixed it. Okay. So let's replace all those. Boom. And let me rerun Dino. We got a bunch of changes at this point. Overall score is 55. All of these changes. Drop it in over here. Higher ability. It just wants me to take the H and make it a lowercase. I don't think so. That's a title. So, all right, cool. So correctness has gone from like 120 errors to like 92 errors. Yeah, overall score went from 55 to 71 just by rewriting like one paragraph and then fixing a bunch of spelling mistakes. I guess I did three things: rewrite a paragraph, spelling mistakes, and consistent rule breakers syntax. Okay. So like I said, I'm not going to go through all of this on air, but y'all get a gist of the, I think the correctness thing makes sense. Let's look at clarity. How would I rewrite passive to active? Results show that employers, so results show is active. That employers expect is also active. Low skill from non-college graduates. Okay, even when the candidate is technically certified, that is passive. The candidate is technically certified. That's passive. So I could end the sentence and say, this result holds for technically certified candidates. Okay, so this result holds is active. And technically certified candidates is now a subject, not an object. So even when the candidate is technically certified, the candidate is passively acting. So they're actually, from a grammar point of view, they are the object, not the subject of the sentence. So that's where the passive voice criticism, it's like so minor, it's just tone. Like, I don't think you would get a paper rejected for tone. I think you might just get asked to rewrite it. I don't think you would get rejected for that. But if it can even subconsciously make a reader like my paper more, I'm going to do it. So I'll do a couple more examples, but that shows how I can change a passive statement into an active statement. Results show that employers expect low skill from non-college graduates. This result holds for technically certified. I'll say technically certified individuals, candidates. Respondents expect non-college graduates to break formal and informal rules. Interestingly, this is considered a valuable behavior. State and industry effects each explain. Unnecessary. Boom. Thanks, Grammarly. Okay. State and industry effects explain about 5% of outcomes. Very cool. Introduction and description of data introduction. Shouldn't be there like that. I think that's my fault. Okay, so this was the abstract. And then I can go in and delete this comment. Sometimes, so a lot of times I just want to check it into version control. Let's go back and read it. I guess I was explores an original data set n equals 12. So I just omitted the sample size because it's kind of small. It's not really impressive. Unique findings that employers tend to view rule breakers positively on average. Okay, so here I said interesting. Interestingly, this is considered a valuable behavior. I don't think it really matters. If y'all care, let me know. Employer attitudes are not meaningfully different from the general public. I'm actually going to leave that because that is a result that is kind of cool. Okay, so I'll just leave it like that. I deleted a bunch of those comments that aren't really needed, but I don't want to delete anymore. Okay, could be introduction and description of data. I don't really do a description of data, though. In fact, that might be criticism of the paper. I just kind of weave the description into the methodology and results. And the reason is because I have so many factors that I don't want to describe every factor. I just want to describe the factors that matter. So I was kind of trying to push that into the conclusion. For now, I'll just call it introduction. Are seen. So this is another thing. Higher education are seen. So that's taking the subject and making it into an object. So you could either create two sentences out of it, or you could rephrase the sentence. Vocational school and other non-college means of higher education. I don't even like the word means of higher education. And other non-college kinds, and other non-college kinds. Vocational school and other non-college kinds of higher education are seen. And the question is like, seen by who? So if I can answer that, then I can make it active. And the answer is like society or experts or some employers. Okay, are seen to endow, but the traditional degree. Okay. I have experts, right? These people I just cited. These people I just cited are the experts that view it as endowing technical school. Okay, so experts consider. Okay. Did I just hear knocking? Oh, no, my dog is messing around with the food bowl. Okay. So I could talk about employers, experts, or society. I don't want to talk about employers because my data later on shows that employers actually think that alternatively educated individuals are lacking in technical skill. Experts. The answer is that some experts do. And actually, I can't really say society either because I have a survey from Big Rents. It's not representative of the whole population, but it's representative of a certain age group, 18 to 24. That age group cross-cutting across other societal verticals. And they don't see technical skill coming from outside of college. Again, I think they're wrong. Why do we think they're wrong? We think they're wrong because a certain group of experts who decide how to even measure technical skill, and also like anytime you actually run an analysis on technical skill, as opposed to perceived levels of skill, if you actually ask them to perform a task, the people who are technically trained do better. Okay, so this is the experts. Experts view vocational school and alternative post-secondary education as ways to obtain, as effective in generating, effective in granting, as useful. Experts view vocational school and alternative post-secondary education as effective agents of technical training. But the college degree remains associated with higher wages. Great. Okay, you already hate my sentence. Great, thanks. Experts view, okay, consider rephrasing. Experts view vocational school and alternative post-secondary education as effective technical training agents. Maybe I can just say effective for. Okay. Experts view vocational school and alternative post-secondary education as effective for technical training, but the traditional degree remains associated with higher wages. The puzzle, of course, is if the traditional degree doesn't actually give you any technical skills, why is it paying higher wages? And the answer is that we think that even though there's technical skills, is not the perception of those skills. The royal we. This is my theory. So even though the experts think that there's technical skills, there's a perception problem, and also there's a soft skill bias that vocational school and alternative post-secondary education, they don't give you soft skills, and employers really care about this. So this paper tests the hypothesis that perceived skill gaps explain the salary variance. In parentheses, it's like perceived skill gaps, even though there isn't actually a technical skill gap. But there's still going to be a perceived skill gap. In particular, this paper hypothesizes a perceived soft skill gap among non-college graduates. So that employers are assuming if you graduated from college, you have better soft skills. That's my hypothesis. Okay, great. So let's grab this. Gingras. Cool. All right. Oh, did my score go down or what happened there? All right, so here is the grab the right hand over here. Now it just says introduction once. That's great. Okay, so it's recalculating everything, and I'm going to go ahead and commit these changes. So the changes here include what changes did we make? Spell conscientiousness correctly. Dude, did I even spell it correctly this time? Woo! And some passive voice rework and consistent rule breakers syntax. Okay, so those are some of the changes I made. Push that up. All right, so I think we've made some definite improvement to this paper, although how substantial is it? Meh. 77 more alerts. I could continue to grind this out, and that would be useful for me, but let's see. It really does make you reread the whole paper. Like, you're rereading these sentences and rephrasing things. Useful. Yeah, you're right, dude. That is a better word to use there. Useful for technical training, post-secondary education. Effective for. Useful for is just like a more normal, like a naturally flowing way to say it. Okay, let's look back at the agenda and see if I can do anything better. Right, so section by section walkthrough and just general readability I think is still important, but I think y'all understand what that's constituted by. You just read through the paper, and any awkward wordings we're going to fix, and Grammarly is going to help us with that. So I think you get the gist there, and you've gotten a little taste of what that actually entails, although I didn't completely do it. So journal targeting. Let's do this. And yeah. And then I can do the section by section on my own. I also want to collate the peer review feedback, even if I don't resolve it all today. I would like to collate it today. And so let's have notes, working notes instead of random notes. And let's say this is collated feedback. And what do I mean by collated? I just mean like I criticized it, the 2 documents of criticism that I have, and then other stuff people have told me. Just are there themes like the same issue reported over and over? I need to fix it. Or as opposed to like this one guy said one thing, I might not need to worry about it. You see, so that's collating, is like merging or synthesizing the feedback. So I at least want to go through the feedback and collate it and synthesize it, even though I might not fix it all. Because I can, again, like Grammarly is providing some feedback. I gave you a taste of how I'm going to fix it, but I'm not going to grind through it all. And I think I want to do a similar thing here. And then I think that should be good for the stream. We're 11:30 p.m. Eastern, so I don't want to get stupid on air. Okay. So let's do some journal targeting then. I think this won't take too long, and I think it'll be interesting for you as a viewer. Journal targeting. So the first thing is I ask myself, what kind of paper do I even have here? And that kind of starts with keywords or just like knowing. You just kind of know. You have to be familiar with the literature and read a bunch of papers. You could also specifically look at those papers that we cited. Okay, bib file. So I know my paper is in service of an economics PhD program. It touches on skill gaps. There are elements of like personality traits and psychology. It's very much about education and alternative education. And then skill gaps is a thing that is really important in the business world and in managerial economics and also just like business. So these are like 5 journal groups that I could look at. One is the economics journals. 2 is business journals. 3 is like organizational psychology journals. 4 is education journals. Yep, that's pretty much it. And then 5 would be like managerial, but let's say that that's covered by business and economics. So there's really like 4 kinds of journals. Okay, so let me jot that down. Journals to be considered: economics, applied, econ, business, managerial, organizational psychology. I don't want to do a pure psychology. I don't want to do pure psychology because there's not enough of that. Yeah, there is this whole like employer perception thing, which is interesting because you could say, hey, this is more about the psychology of the employer than it is about the facts of the world. So it's like a psychological phenomena because these vocational people have technical skills, but they're viewed as not having technical skills. So this is really like an industrial psychology. And I think that's synonymous for organizational psychology, but we'll see. 1, 2, 3, and then education, alternative education. Is there any technology here? No, I don't really get into the technology. I do have some technology like ed tech-ish type stuff. All right, so these are the journals to be considered. And then let's also, so that's just like knowing the literature and the types of journals that exist, generic approach. Now let's look specifically at these journals real quick. Education and Training Journal. Okay, looks like a real journal. It's got an ISSN. And let's open up Cabell's because even journals that I find this way, I am going to want to consider publishability. I mean, this is not the right way to get to Cabell's. If you go this way, it's not going to work. I need to go through George Mason Library. Okay, so this is like journals to be considered. And this is keyword approach, keyword or journal category approach. And this is PValue approach. And then here, and then, yeah, this is Cabell's results. I don't think there's an apostrophe in Cabell's. Keywords or categories based on content. Journals from PValue, and then Cabell's results will be journal by journal. I'll do it like this. Cabell's results for journals from PValue. And then this will be Cabell's results for journals using keyword or category search. Very cool. So the first one is going to be education and training. And let's follow the same pattern that I have in my other articles where I do this. So over here, I'm preparing to submit an economic history paper. So 201, what was two? Oh, that's the rank. So I do, that's a REPEC rank. That's only going to be useful for economics journals, but it's still useful. 17, I think 17 is the impact factor. I think I might just ignore the rank. Yeah. So there'll be journal name, time to publish, odds of publish, impact factor. So those are the metrics that I care about from Cabell's. So let's go to Cabell's. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so how do I log in? I think I got to log in with your institution. Are you going to be bad? All right, let's do a different way. Nope, this is also not right. Like resource type? Oh. Might not be a library search. Okay, so it's Cabell, so kind of shot myself on the foot there. I think I've seen it sometimes with an apostrophe and sometimes without. Okay, close this. Close this. Yeah, see, here's Cabell's with an apostrophe. Cabell's without an apostrophe. Whatever. I think it's just one of those things that's kind of hard to search. And it's under library.gmu. Fine. And here it's Cabell Starley, Cabell's directory, or whatever. So let's log in through my university. Shout out to GMU. I do like the school. Okay, so education plus training. Yep. Okay, so here's the journal. Some journals will not even show in Cabell's, and that could be taken as a sign of Cabell's inadequacy, but it can also be taken as a sign that the journal is just so low quality, Cabell's doesn't even care about it. So it's actually, I personally take it as a good sign that it shows up in Cabell's. So 36% acceptance rate is fucking litty. Do they even have an impact? Where's their impact factor? 2 to 3 month review time is litty. 5,000 to 7,000 words. This is my jam, dog. But what is their impact factor? I think Cabell's might have taken off the impact factor. We have the median mentions per article. Distance learning, professional development, whatever. Management, education, and psychology. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so management. I'm gonna definitely consider this. Double blind, love it. Okay, I'm gonna definitely consider this. Okay. So the way I'd express so it's month 2 to 3. 2 to 3 months, 36% accepted. Okay. And the impact factor, so I will use the 46 mentions per article. Just say 46 mentions. Okay. And here I linked it. These are the repack links. I'll give it a link. Let's do journal website link. Yeah, same one that we saw earlier, right? Okay, cool. I am a fan. As in, that can be an option for sure. Looks like a solid journal. Okay, so bib file approach carrying on. Big grants, degree blog, these are not journals. Proceedings, it's not a real journal. That is also not a journal. American Academy of Arts and Sciences, Cambridge. Yeah, in proceedings. This is a book. Here's an article. International Journal of Psychology. Personality characteristics that are valued in teams. We give it a shot, but it feels kind of like a long shot because it's like a pure psychology journal. But why not? I feel better if it's like an industrial psychology journal. International Journal of Psychology. Nope, you don't show up, so business communication. No. Nope, okay, you don't show up, so you don't get considered. Sorry. Association for Information Systems. So this is actually not a journal, or? I guess it's like an association white paper. It's not really a journal. Yeah, it looks like it's a conference, so it's okay. Psychology of Women Quarterly. I'm gonna dodge that one. Canadian Public Policy. Gonna dodge it. Applied Economics. I love Applied Economics. I've actually been published in Applied Economics letters. I'd love to get published in Applied Economics, but I might also try out the letters. Okay. Shit, I'll look at all three of these guys. So we have Applied Economics, AEL, and then AEQ, and I'll consider all three of them. Right. Oops, I think I just fucked something up. Well, it looks like I'm still on air, so whatever I... Sheesh. Okay. And that's a letters journal, so they're just shorter papers, but my paper's pretty short and I could trim it more. And I could also, I'm pretty flexible on the size. Like, I could grow or shrink my paper. Okay, so let's look at the time to review. I'm a little bit less sensitive on time to review because I'm not going to mention the reasons that I'm less sensitive on that. Ideally, we get published, right? So we got 3 to 6, 1 to 2. Love that 1 to 2, 2 to 3. 3 to 6, 1 to 2. 3 to 6, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, respectively. Okay. Two to 3. Okay, and then 25, 24, 20. That, you see how it's there's an interesting trade-off here, right? 25 is the highest percent acceptance rate, but on an annual basis, if you're trying to publish as many as possible, you have to multiply the acceptance rate by the time to review. So 3 times faster time to review, 1% less acceptance rate. Ooh. 3 to 5. So you could go through both of these other journals in 3 to 5 months as opposed to just this. So 25% acceptance rate versus 24, and then assuming independence, even though it's not independent, because if you get rejected from one, that's tricky, right? If you get rejected from one and you make no changes, you're probably going to get rejected from the other. But if you get rejected with a good message from one and then you incorporate the changes, I would love to see a paper on that, because you could argue that the second one is better odds of acceptance because you improved it. I haven't really seen a good paper on that. Anyway, let's just assume independence. So 75 times 0.2, so 75 divided by 5 isn't that 25? No, 15. So 15, so roughly 39% chance of acceptance between those two combined. So that might be my strategy. But personally, there's this weird thing where I've been accepted to applied economics letters and I've already been published, and I love it. Like, I was happy to be published there, but I don't want to be the guy who's only ever published in one journal. And also, I think applied economics is higher ranked, even though apparently they have a higher acceptance rate. See, now here's the kicker. Minimum 16 pages. I could still swing that, but are y'all going to make me work? I'd probably go for letters. Pages. How many words in a page? Right, so 500 words. No way. 4-page maximum? No way. I don't know. Maybe that's true. I don't know. I can just word count my paper, right? Let's just word count my paper. Right, so keeping in mind that this is going to include citations. So let's drop, I don't know. Let's just see what it says. 3627, and then you have to check, does the journal, is their word count inclusive of citations or not? It's going to vary by journal, but wow. I guess I didn't realize. Letters papers are small, you know, but at 3,500 words, I could still apply to applied economics letters, and I would have room for another 1 to 3 pages, which is great. Or maybe more. That'd be like 6,000. Yeah, I mean, I could actually double my paper. We'll think about it. I think I would check the requirements for applied economics letters, and I would try to actually apply here because this is a great acceptance rate. Time to review. Man, I need to think about that some more. $16 to 20 pages. And they're a nice right in the middle, right? It might be easier for me to add 3 to 5 pages than to cut 3 to 5 pages. I think it'd be easier to add. So applying to applied economics quarterly might be easier. And then by the time I'm 16 to 20, that is 8,000. Okay, so I might want to just go, but then it's 3 to 6 month time to review. All right, all options on the table at this point. All right, 3 to 6, 1 to 2, so that's 25%, 24%, 20%, comma, comma, comma. And then this might be the reasons for the ranking. So we have, 13, 9, 8. And that's why the 1 is considered higher rank, even though they're apparently easy, like higher chance of publication. That's kind of cool. I'm not going to bother linking those. Okay, to my bib file. BBC Work Life, nope. Industrial and commercial training. If that is a journal, yeah, that's a journal, right? So this could be a cool one. 40, ooh, look at this guy. Aren't you glad that we didn't pull the trigger yet? 35, sheesh. This could be cool right here. And I have not heard about this place. Those other 3 that I didn't link, they're like very well known. So Emerald Publishing as well. I guess maybe Emerald has a bunch of, bunch of management journals. Okay. Okay, so no, did that wrong. This would be, shit, what is it called? Industrial and commercial training. One to 2 months, 41% accepted, and 35 mentions, which is really pretty good. My professors might complain that it's not an economics journal, so being a dissertation student, that's a conversation I might need to have. But the specs on it are really good. It's double blind. It looks like a quality journal. I'm not really familiar, but it looks like a quality journal. And it's actually a good sign for Emerald that they publish multiple journals. That gives them more credibility. And then it's a virtuous circle because it gives all of their constituent journals more credibility. There are these like one-offs where it's like, who are they? You've never heard of them. You've never heard of any of their journals, and things get suspect. Okay, back to my bib file. Social and behavior. Okay. Physical attract. No. Contemporary hospitality management. Academy of Management proceeding. It's not a proceeding. Feminization of management. Nope. Epilepsia. Nope. Applied economics letters. Oh yeah, that's. Shh, don't tell anyone aside of myself. But it's relevant. Okay, so these are my bib file results, and I won't go through all of the keywords and categories, but again, I'll give you a taste of how I do that. Education and training could be a really good journal fit because my paper spans the fields of education and like hiring, which is like a labor economics / business / management thing. So this is considered a management discipline. Whoa. Whoa. Yes. Cabela's is pretty cool, man. Look at that. So we hover over management, and then it says business education, labor and relations. Rad sick, bro. Rad sick, bro. So I'm going to actually change that to say management. I wish I could like click and get to like related journals or something. Ooh, call for papers. Look at this. This is awesome. Okay, so can I check multi? Yeah, let's check multi. And then I'm going to try and go for. I really don't like open. I like blind or double blind, but let's get to this one at a time. So we did management. Okay, economic. Accounting, education, no. Behavioral? Yeah, mine could be considered behavioral. It's not econometrics, no, sorry. IO, yep. It is micro. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think a micro place would really take it seriously, but technically is micro. Okay, so those are the, I guess those are accounting, whoops. So now we're in economics and finance. Behavioral economics, didn't I already check behavioral economics? All right, whatever. Education curriculum and methods. Let's see. Educational psychology? I don't know, maybe. Higher education, it kind of is. It's alternate. Yeah, it is. It's alternative higher education, but it's still post-secondary. Tests, measurement, and evaluation. Hell yeah. Educational psychology. Yep. Distance learning. Yeah, it's alternative education, which it's not, so distance learning is a kind of alternative education. But anyway, we'll see what it do. Trying to cast a bit of a wide net here. professional, technical, vocation, and continuing education. I don't know. Okay. All right, cool. Does that just search all of them? Right, it does, right? So what I'm looking for would be let's just look if there's a call for. This might be. I don't want to do that. Call for papers would be really cool, but. Relative influence a journal has within a discipline. I don't know. Let's go with alt metric because that's actually something that I. So on a minimum of 10, I guess. Oh. Doesn't cut it down much. Maybe it cuts it down some. 948 compared to. Yeah, so it cuts it in half. That's fine. It's a good little help. Okay, and then peer review, let's do blind or double blind. Okay, so it cuts out like 100 of them. Very good. Difficulty of acceptance. I would like better than 4. Like better than a 4% chance. I like better than 5. Yeah, 5. Okay. Very cool. So these are all looking good. Action learning, research, and practice. Academy of Management Annals. What? Invited articles, I would like no data to 30%. I don't want something that's supposed to be like mostly invited. Okay. Because I haven't been invited, so that would active learning in higher education. Nope. Adult education, maybe. Acceptance rate 12% now. Developing human resources, this could work. Acceptance rate 80%, whoa. But they're heavily invited. And they're 30 plus length. I'm going to include them anyway, because that's an awesome acceptance rate. I'll just add a note. Okay. So 2 to 3, 80%, 46. 2 to 3. And then the comment would be 30 plus page length. So they're looking for pretty long papers, but anyway. AER does not accept you. Journal distance education. No. Journal of Education. Yeah. But that's a low acceptance rate. It'd be cool. It'd be cool to get in the APA, but I don't know. It feels like too much of a pure psychology thing that it doesn't feel like a really great fit. All right, but let's put it on there anyway. One to 2, 26, 37. And then what's their length? 35 page maximum. Okay. Applied measurement in education. Applied psychological measurement. No. I don't want Asia stuff. Assessment for effective intervention. Assessment in education. Let's take a look at these guys. So they have a bit of a time to review. Like it takes a while to review, but I'll write them down. I don't like these like, I don't want anything that's a specific country other than USA because my data is from the USA. College and research libraries. No. College teaching, communication, education. So if I want to take a comparative attitude with my paper that I'm comparing alternative to traditional education, there's something there. I might want to rephrase some things to more target a comparative tone, but just something there. 13% feels lowish. I'll write it down. Okay, so they are 2 to 3, 13%, 21. Education economics could work. They take a while to review, but could be a good fit. I like this one for the balance of fast review and high acceptance rate. I'm probably going to prefer a journal that's under a 3-month review time, because I'd love to get an answer. I'd love to get an answer this year. 21 to 30, 23. Ooh. Yeah, this could be cool, even though it's a lower acceptance rate. It's a quick review, and they have a lot of mentions, so that could be worth a shot. Educational research review. I think there could be journal fit here. So 1 to 2, 19%. $135. That would be great. Whoa, no, what happened, dog? Did I lose all my filters? Bro, don't tell me I lost all my filters. PValue just like went down or something. All right, so I will finish that on my own. We have some good answers. So let's do the collation, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so let's look at this stuff. What's wrong besides everything? Oh, sheesh, this guy had put his name all over it. Very cool. So these notes, I don't see. This is good. This is good. So these notes, I don't see his name all over it. I have the Word document is on my other screen, and it's got the guy who provided feedback. It's got his name all over it, which I'm not super sure that. I don't know if he's cool with me showing his name or not. So I will just like kind of bring it over, but it's going to stay on the other screen. It's not within alt ed, it is across alt ed and traditional ed, right? Kind of. So I focus really on the alternatively educated non-college graduate, although my data set has both, but I don't really talk about the skill gaps of the traditional degree, except very tangentially in one place where I'm like, this is insignificantly different. Okay, after reading the abstract, I'm left very hazy on what you did or why it was important. Ugh. And this is the most important elements of an abstract. What is being tested? Okay, so these are good. Oh, he gives me a rewriting. That's super nice. Okay, I'll just mention rewrite abstract. And this is going to say strike, isn't it? Strike interesting. Combine preceding and remainder of the sentence. Yeah, it's fair. Fair. If this is a singular thing, then maybe you should hyphenate. Perceived soft skill gaps are particularly important. Perceived by whom? Okay, colloquial. Yeah. Okay, so let's get rid of interestingly. Okay, perceived by whom? It's employer perceived. Is that, let's Google soft skill and see if it's hyphenated. Okay, so arguably soft skill gaps would be the right way to say it, but I don't see anyone in the paper saying that. So I can say gaps in soft skills. So I'll do it that way. Okay, so let's strike interestingly. Respondents expect This paper explores an original data set to understand the influence of employer skill gap perception on hiring. Okay, results show that employers expect low skill from non-college graduates. This holds, okay. Respondents expect non-college graduates to break formal and informal rules, but some respond, okay, not even some, it tends to be. But this tends to be, respondents expect non-college graduates to break formal and informal rules. Rule breaking. How does that Google? Rule breaking. Rule breaking is all one word, yeah? Rule breaking. I think for consistency, I tend to do it as one word. All right, so now we're transitioning to results. And I said interestingly, but what I want to highlight is that this is contrary to what the literature suggests. Maybe I should just say that. Contrary to what the literature suggests. What is breaking informal? Okay. Or expecting college. Seems outcomes have not been introduced. If you mean expectations are outcomes, that link may need to be built. Okay. Expectation gap has not been quantified. Seems that should be done before breaking down percent. Ooh. Okay, so I agree with a lot of this. Important to what end? I agree with a lot of this, but this is like a bigger revamp of the abstract that we're talking about here. Okay, so let me undo these changes and just make a note that I need to revamp the abstract. Okay, revamp abstract. Cool. Okay, so good opener. So the feedback here is good opener, but the follow through. Good opener, but not a good follow through. Okay, let's see if that is reiterated. Okay, but the traditional college degree retains a wage premium on average, right? The wage premium of college degrees persist. I kind of like them both. Which one of these is better? Traditional, but the traditional college degree. Let's do that one. Okay. but the traditional college degree retains a, and I'm going to say comparative wage premium. I'm going to drop the on average. Okay. Signaling, yeah, it's true. One of the standard explanations. That's why I said a standard explanation, not the standard explanation. But I can say I can change it to one of the standard explanations. Let's see if that okay is. Let's see if that criticism is repeated. Signaling model has become a standard explanation of the value of degree. Yeah, so that criticism hasn't really been repeated. It is true that it's not like the only one or really even the main one, but it's a standard or one of the standard explanations. All right, whatever. The reviewer is right. Okay. A standard has become one of the standard explanations of the value of the degree. Okay? Okay, so I was asked for a citation by both people. I might need to go back and ask them how to do this. So citation 5 supports the sentence of citation and also the following. So I'm under the impression it's fairly common that within the same paragraph you don't need to recite, but maybe I should. This paper hypothesizes that employers infer a conformity and conscientiousness differential between college graduates and certificate holders. Okay, this paper hypothesizes that employers infer not just a differential, but actually that the alternatively educated individual is lower, so that they are lacking. Okay, so but I still like this paper hypothesizes that employers infer a deficit of conscientiousness and conformity. So let's take this and then rework it slightly. Okay, this paper hypothesizes that employers infer a deficit, because deficit means like lacking in, right? It doesn't just mean a difference. Okay, employers infer a deficit in conformity and conscientiousness in alternatively educated non-college graduates relative to It's not just certificate holders, right? So here, alternatively credentialed. Alternatively credentialed. Credentialed. Yep. Alternatively credentialed non-college graduates. I think I say ACNG. Yeah, it's a phrase I use a bunch. So we'll see if maybe that phrase needs to go. It's always lame to like invent your own jargon, right? But it's such a mouthful. Alternatively credentialed non-college graduates. It's not just certificate holders. Okay. The signaling model has become one of the standard explanations of the value of the degree. Cool. Okay. So this is my this is like my statement that alternatives to college signal. Yeah, so maybe I need to throw it away. Nice. Oh gosh. Yeah, I think I need to retire for the night. So conformity is antithetical to innovation. To do All right, cool. So I think y'all get the idea of what I'm doing here. Yeah, revamp abstract. That seems like a big shared one. I'm only into the introduction, but the criticisms of the introduction don't seem to be really consistent, which is not to say that they're wrong, but they also seem like really targeted, which is good. But because they are targeted and not shared, it seems to me easier to just directly edit the manuscript rather than to add a collated feedback line. A 10-point scale type of variable is not cardinal. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I guess I need to move that way up. Yeah, there should be a footnote. Let's see. Max p-value was not referenced in the, yeah, okay. So that's a shared note, is better table 1 explanation. And I'm sure as I continue reading, there will be more shared notes, but I wanted to at least get 2 things in there. So that it was actually, with 2 things, it's actually become a list. Yep, good point, good point. Okay, this is great stuff, but I want to go to sleep. Okay, let's check if there's anything else in my chat. No, good to go. Everyone's good to go. Thank you all for tuning in. And keep an eye on this article. So this article, we have updated it, right? With some to-dos and stuff like that. I updated what's today's date? Following a streaming session. Following the streaming. Let's see if I can grab a link to part 6 real quick. And so I will either update that article. I'm probably going to update that article with some kind of links. But then I'm also will probably create a whole other article. Oh, I wonder if it like overwrites it or something. Anyway. Or I might, yeah, it might have overwritten part 6. I was mainly just going over the agenda, so I don't think that's a big deal. So yeah, I will update this article. It's referring to parts 6 and 7, and then there's a to-do to rename. So I'm at least going to update those things. And then look out for it. I'll have another article once the paper has been complete. I'll at least have a blog article. I don't know if I'll have a YouTube video or like Twitch stream or anything like that, but I'll at least have a blog article when hardening the paper is complete, and then you'll be able to see like the version that I submitted to the actual journals after all the edits are done.